What up? How you all doing? Let's continue. Judy Bond's testimony. April 2nd. Zodiac Hall Fountain Room. The test results have come in, sir. Traces of ubiquitin were found in the teapot. They were? Just like Miss Edgeworth said. Curse you. You better not think that means you beat me. You really need to drop this obsession with coming in first, Mr. Winner. We're all on the same side here, remember? We're all trying to get the truth. To the truth. What? But first is best. Everybody knows it's better to be a winner than a loser. That's really no way for a prosecutor to think. Not a successful one, anyway. Ooh, but I... Enough, Mr. Edgeworth. Please refrain from taunting the boy. Ignore him, Eustace. He isn't worthy of your attention. Look a bell. Oh, alright. Why don't you take care of things here for now? In the meantime, you can perform far more important tasks going and checking on the victim. Oh, yeah, good idea. I'll be right back. Excellent. Shall we see you shortly then? Mr. Winner's annoying, but a totally harmless Judge Gambit, on the other hand. Now, Miss Bound, perhaps you could explain why traces of ubiquitin were found in your teapot. I had no idea there was anything like that in there. Perhaps it's one of the ingredients in the dishwashing soap I use. So are you telling the court you did not intentionally put ubiquitin in the teapot? Yes, exactly. Why would I? Until today, I had no idea that it could even be used to make poison gas.
Objection!
You're a trained actress, are you not, Miss Bound? I thought that you would be more convincing liar. Wait, what do you mean? You have access to the Ultimate Cookbook, correct? A book that just happens to contain instructions on how to create the poison gas used in the attack. Meaning, it's perfectly possible for you to know exactly how to make it. You're very well informed, Mr. Edgeworth. Miss Bound, what is Edgeworth said true? The book does contain information on how to make the poison gas, yes. But the fact that I have seen it doesn't make me guilty. Can I ask exactly how was the glass triggered? The victim used a blowtorch to heat the lid of the display case, thereby melting the ubiquitin. I see. But he locked himself in the room too, didn't he? Surely that and the fact that he triggered it himself wouldn't point it to be a suicide attempt. So she's not willing to admit anything yet. Furthermore, where would have I gotten a hold of the Infesticide Ultra? Oh, I don't know. Perhaps you stole it. You know, I did bump into Moody Judy a week or so ago. And that very evening, I noticed my Infesticide Ultra had gone missing. Judy, surely you did, and Delicia, You carry your bag of pharmaceuticals with you everywhere, don't you? There would have been a number of opportunities for someone other than myself to steal it from you. That's true. And I don't have any hard evidence that it definitely was Bond who stole it. Dudes, there's clearly something that you're not telling us. Why don't you just come clean, hmm? We all know that you never hurt somebody for no reason, so... Not you too. You think I'm guilty as well, Mr. Fender. Can you blame me? We've got one wing disguised as another gas trap in one of the display case. And you're the proprietor of this establishment. It's looking a lot like you did it, kiddo. You've got this all wrong. You have to remember the gallery doesn't have any security cameras. Oh, why not? Nor any security personnel. If some ill-intentioned person or other wanted to get in undetected, I don't think they'd have much of a problem. Wow, you're practically asking to be burglarized. You need to be more careful. A great thief could have a field day in here. And I don't think she's joking. And actually, it seems that Mr. Gusto did it in fact. Enter the gallery before it was opened. Sheesh. Judy's one tough cookie. She's not budging an inch. Maybe it's time to rock a little technique Gregory taught me back in the day. And what technique might that be? So, hear me out. Everything's connected to what happened 18 years back, yeah? Since we're not getting anywhere by focusing on the here and now, maybe we ought to approach it from a different angle. And look past the clues instead. A turnabout in thinking. So my father used this method as well. Alright, let's run through the old Thinkatron and how Jude's is involved in what happened back then. According to Ms. Ballard, it was actually her that Mr. Frost's flavored ice sculptures melted. And yet his sculptures are here on display at this very gallery today. Is it possible that she... Thank you, Mr. Fender. I think I know what I need to ask Miss Bond now. Don't thank me, thank your pops. Now, take it away, Misley. I'll grab the popcorn. Miss Bound. You say that you were the one who caused Mr. Frost's creations to melt 18 years ago, correct? I'm afraid so. I was young and foolish, and it was a terrible accident. And yet, you did allow you... And yet, what you did allow you to open this exhibit, no? What do you mean? Yes, what do you mean, Mr. Edgeworth? If you're going to ask such questions, perhaps a formal testimony from Miss Bond might be best. Yes, perhaps it might. I'd like to know a little bit more about the Zodiac Hall. And about why Miss Bond decided to dedicate this space to Mr. Frost's works. Very well, if you believe that'll be relevant to the case, I'll allow it. Miss Bound, if you mind. Not at all. I'll do whatever it takes to prove I'm innocent. Then please, if you could give us a background on the Zodiac Hall and the pieces on display here. It took 18 years, but at long last it was finally able to buy Samson's home back a little while ago. But the place is like expensive to maintain, so I decided to turn it into an art gallery. So to that end, I collected as many Paul Howie pieces I could from around the world. Because if I'm honest, it's always been something of a dream of mine to open a space dedicated to his work. Thank you for your testimony, Miss Bond. How wonderful that is you were able to fulfill your dream. Well, Mr. Edgeworth, everything seems entirely above board to me. Judge Cavell. That was simply the witness's preliminary statement. As you surely know, the value of the testimony cannot be evaluated without due cross-examination. Haha, spoken like a true attorney. Very well. You may do what you must. Hold on, let me get a water real quick. Rest.
Hold it!
18 years ago, or 18 years. Must have gone through a lot to buy back, Miss Bound. This home, this place, such memories abound. I couldn't stand to lose what I had found. Samson did what I had to do. Or Samson, I did what I had to do. To see that the home was waiting here for you. How does she make it look so easy? I'll say, but I wouldn't expect any less from the trained triple threat performer. If you could continue with your testimony, Miss Bond, minus the singing, if you please. You managed a gallery by yourself, Miss Bond. Yes, and we only opened today, so I haven't done much actual managing yet, but I have to keep the mansion going. Can't have it falling down around my ears. Samson could come home any day after all. So she really did get the house back for him. I'm so sorry, Judes. I wish I could have done more. Oh, you've done plenty, Mr. Fender. If anyone should have done more, it's me. Ooh. Even if the only thing I can do right now is keep this place safe for Samson. To that end, I collected as many Paul Howey pieces, and let's press, because I don't need to reread it. That was Mr. Frost's pseudonym, correct? Yes, he adopted it while working as a sculptor in France. I see. I'm curious about some pieces in your collection, more specifically. How you were able to acquire the Taurus and Gemini sculptures. It was my understanding that Frost had died before he could complete them. Yes, I was able to create replicas for the Winter Wing, based on the photos of the sculptures he made. Really? Perhaps you could go into some more detail on that. Because if I'm honest, I've always been something of a dream of mine to open a space dedicated to— oh, that's not— that's not a new one. I thought it was. Tell me more about this dream of yours, Miss Bond. Well, what I really wanted to is to open a gallery with Samson, of course. A gallery of dance, and a gallery of song, and a gallery of... is it gaiety? And candy all day long. Or gaiety? I don't know. I don't know. That was the idea anyway. And here I thought art was an appreciation. In silence, not accompanied by musical numbers. Alas, Mr. Tangaroa transgressed against the edicts of the goddess of justice. And as such, the part of the dream may go permanently unfulfilled. No, Samson he's innocent. That awful prosecutor refused to listen, but it's true. He never hurt anybody. Mr. Tangaroa gave a false confession in order to protect Miss Bond. The two of them really did what they could to protect one another, didn't they? I was able to create replicas.
Hold it!
These photos you mentioned, you mean the ones you took yourself in Mr. Frost's room 18 years ago? Yes, you can certainly know a lot about what happened back then, Miss Edgeworth. So those statues in the Winter Wing were just copies? I didn't even get to see them before they melted. No, the sculptures in question were definitely not replicas. Which means Miss Bond is lying. I know, it's such an awful shame, after we went to the trouble to recreate them too. The sculptures in the Winter Wing weren't replicas. They were the very ones from 18 years ago. I need to show her I'm aware of that, or I'll never get the truth. Ooh, how do I show her that they were there 18 years ago? Combination of matches sugar found in the pale blue liquid, already frosted room 18 years ago. Composition of matches sugar found in the pale blue liquid, already frosted 18 years ago. Would the Gemini case analysis results be it? Yeah, we got it, boys. I'm afraid I'm afraid you've run out of the road, Miss Bowden. You can lie all you like, but you can't deny the results of the test conducted on the sculptures remains. And those tests leave no room for ambiguity. What you had on display weren't replicas. They were the very statues Mr. Frost carved 18 years ago. Oh, I can probably explain how they worked it out if you like, dear. It's the sugar, you see. You might think sugar, but the composition is actually very unique. You could probably recreate the statues, but the sweet secret of their chemical makeup, no chance. Thank you, Miss Cone. I don't recall asking you for help, but still. To put it simply, the statues didn't disappear back then because they melted. They disappeared because you spirited them away and kept them hidden all these 18 long years. Ah! What? She kept a pair of flavored ice sculptures around somewhere for all that time? It's not the most out of their idea in the world, assuming you had a big enough icebox. Quiet, all of you. Miss Bound, do you have anything to say in your defense? So you've already learned that much. Should I take it you mean you admit to having hidden the flavored ice sculptures in question? No, I admit no such thing. You haven't proven that I was the one who took those statues away. And you won't, because it wouldn't have been impossible for me to do so in the first place. The police were already here when they disappeared. How could I have done it without them noticing? How indeed. I don't yet know exactly how you did it, but I'm far from ready to say that it was impossible for you to have stolen them away. You're a very persistent man, aren't you, Mr. Edgeworth? I am indeed. And I won't stop until I get the truth. I see. Then I better tell you exactly what did that day 18 years ago. The whole time before the judging began, I was waiting upstairs in our living area on standby. During the judging, I had to go change the camera's film cartridge for Samson. But before I could take the camera back to Samson, I discovered Mr. Frost's body. Later, around when your father arrived, I began to make the rounds to serve tea to everybody present. That was when I saw Mr. Gusto entering Mr. Frost's room. And those were my movements on the day it all happened. I hardly see how you could take an issue with any of that. That's for us to decide, Miss Bound. Are you saying there's a contradiction in her story, Mr. Edgeworth? I'm more focused on providing the fact that she did indeed steal those statues. The question is, when she would have had the opportunity to do so. If I can pinpoint that, I might be able to prove what exactly she got up to. And what were you doing while you were waiting? I was in my room practicing some dance routines. I was on a TV show called Bacon Bop with Samson, you see. Bacon Bop? What kind of show was it? It was a children's show. The two of them would sing and dance as they made a variety of sweets. Is he putting the frosting on with a, what's it called? Was it a skimmer or something like that? Okay. Not a spatula. Whoa, that sounds kind of awesome. Hold the phone, Miles. You used to watch it? My father introduced me to it. I may have watched an episode or two. So Miss Bound passed the time before judging, began by practicing her dance routines. Was this the moment Miss Bound stole the scriptures? That can't be the moment she did it. I better listen carefully to what she says. Oh, so am I going to get that for every statement?
Hold it!
Were you the only one that was able to move around freely during the judging? Well, I wouldn't say freely exactly, but I was able to move around more easily than the contestants, yes. Even so, I could hardly have spirited the sculptures away while Samson was standing right there, could I? I ran straight off to change the film as soon as he asked me. I would have had time. So changing the film in the camera was requested by Mr. Tangaroa. Was this the moment that Miss Bound stole the sculptures? I'll say no right now, because I don't know yet. That can't have been the moment she did it. We're not going to repeat that one every time.
Hold it!
You entered the room containing Mr. Tangaroa's work before bringing the camera back to him, correct? Yes. I heard a sound of something collapsing. Samson, are you in here? Ah! The sound of the chocolate chip falling over after a certain someone took a bite out of the supports. And Mr. Tangaroa was still in Mr. Gusto's room when you found the body. Yes, I'm fairly sure that was the case. He was judging each room in order, and he likes to take his time. So the point in which he discovered Mr. Frost's body. I'm gonna say not yet. I want to press the other statements.
Hold it!
I would say she probably did it before his dad got there, though. That would make more sense. But we'll see. Just as you did today. Yes, I went around and offered everybody working on the investigation a cup of tea. Present company included. I remember it. You were there, upstairs, downstairs, everywhere. That little card of yours. Interesting. And did anything strike you as strange around that time? Oh yeah, Gregory was singing the praises of Judy's tea, and I think he mentioned that his saucer was cold. His saucer was cold? This was probably the moment, but I'm gonna come back to it. 'Cause I want to press the last statement.
Hold it!
When exactly did you see Mr. Gusto entering the victim's room? It was while your father and the others were investigating the room where the body was found. Gusto said he went in there to get a photo of him, or that's Eddie. Gusto said he went in there to get a photo of him and Frost and their kids because he didn't want anyone to suspect they'd been working together, right? Or because they didn't want anyone to suspected they were working together, right? Pretty sloppy of him to get spotted, though. Definitely not a great thief material. I think Mr. Gusto could live with that, to be honest. So the moment Mr. Gusto snuck into Mr. Frost's room, could have been. I need to figure out when Miss Baum would have been able to steal the sculptures. What was our best window of opportunity? I think a great thief like me would have inkling, but I'm drawing a blank here. If we're going to get to the bottom of this, you'll need to grill it harder. So I get it. We're right behind you, big man. All right. Let me get back to the statement I was going to do earlier that I probably should have just done, because the last statement didn't really give us much.
Hold it!
Miss Bound, I believe this was when you stole the sculptures. I hate to contradict you, but the fountain room was filled with witnesses at that point, Mr. Fender included. Are you suggesting I somehow got the sculptures out of Mr. Frost's room right under everyone's noses? That is what I'm precisely what I'm suggesting. Miss Bound stole the ice sculptures, and she did it hiding them. Yeah.
Take that!
My father and Fender had no idea that one of the sculptures were mere inches away from them, because it wasn't just a tea set you were pushing around, Miss Bound, but a hidden ice sculpture in the glass case. Ah!
Overruled!
Surely such a thing would have been impossible. How would a case of that size fit in a serving cart? It would have been spotted immediately.
Objection!
Who said anything about a serving cart? I'm sure I'm not following, Mr. Edgeworth. What are you suggesting she used instead? I'm suggesting that Miss Bound use this to transport the sculptures.
Take that!
Take that. And this is... Use your brain, woman. The cart that Miss Bound used to move the flavored ice sculptures out of Mr. Frost's rooms 18 years ago. And it would appear that the very same cart is still here with us in this fountain room. We originally bought it for use in the contest. And you're saying that Miss Bound loaded Mr. Frost's sculptures onto this cart and carried them off? I am. As you can imagine, one would need to do is lay a case on its side in a tablecloth. And look like normal serving cart, thus allowing her to move the sculptures around freely. Can it be? Holy moly, of course. That's why those saucers were so chilly. They were sitting on top of a big block of ice. Shoots, how could you? Impressive. Then again, you are Mr. Gregory Edgeworth's son. I should have expected no less. There isn't a scrap of evidence that I stole the sculptures all those years ago now. And yet, I knew no matter what I said or did, I'd always be under a cloud of suspicion. So you admit it? You admit to stole them from Mr. Frost's room? Yes, I do. I took those sculptures and their glass cases out of that room 18 years ago. As Mr. Edgeworth correctly deduced, I dressed up the lift cart as a servant cart to do it. And I slipped in and out of Mr. Frost's room. I was going around serving tea to everybody. In the end, I removed not only the sculptures, but the flavored ice zodiac blocks as well. Zodiac blocks. I feel like I've seen them for myself before. There's a huge block of ice on display here. It must be incredibly heavy. Though maybe not, without being hollow inside. If the winter ring is exactly a replica of Mr. Frost's room 18 years ago, then even though my father never saw them because it was already melted, the Zodiac block must have been in the victim's room back then as well. When I finished moving the two ice sculptures and the two Zodiac blocks out, I took two fresh empty cases from Mr. Frost's room and put them where they originally had been. The only sculptures that had been kept in the glass cases you see to prevent them from being damaged. The blocks were a little more robust, so they had been on display as is. As stated in the contest rules, they were responsible for providing a display materials, including cases. Meaning it would have been easy for her to prepare empty squares. She swapped in. Mr. Frost's room contained quite a few other flavored ice works in progress. I figured if I melted them down somehow, the resulting puddle would look like it came from the two sculptures. And that is how the sculptures from 18 years ago came to be in the Winter Wing today. I have to say, Mr. Edgeworth, that's quite the confession. Indeed. And I think she offers it so willingly because she knows there's nothing she can do with it. That is all I have to tell you. However, despite everything I've shared, you can't charge me with anything now, can you? What? How do you figure that? Oh my. I would have thought that you might know at least this much, given we're at a crime scene. I suggest you memorize the various statutes of limitations outlined in this guide, in this book. Statues of what? Statues for dummies. Simply put, Kay, prosecutors only have a certain amount of time within which they can put a suspect on trial for a given crime. Let's take a closer look, shall we? 7 years from the date of the crime, separate time frames. Thanks, game? So this is different for every crime. Murder 15 years ago. Let's reread that. 7 years ago from the date of the crime, separate time frames apply with regards to claims for damages, etc. Murder. 15 years from the date of the crime, the statute is suspended should the suspect flee to a foreign country. The statute is suspended from the time of any accomplice's indictment to the end of the trial. So it's different for every crime? Murder 15, theft 7 years? Ah. Yes, Miss Bound stole the ice sculptures 18 years ago. So if it's too late for her to be arrested for that crime, I don't believe it. Theft is a serious matter, especially when it involves the removal of evidence from a crime scene. However, as yourself just pointed out, Miss Bond can no longer be prosecuted for her crime, rendering your revelation rather pointless. Wouldn't you say, Mr. Edgeworth? I wouldn't be so sure about that. For you see, the theft of the ice sculptures isn't my principal interest here. I find the body that reappeared 18 years after the theft to be considerably more of interest. Are you suggesting that I also put Mr. Frost's body? I am indeed. But how do you keep the body hidden for 18 years without anybody finding it? Hiding it in a very unusual way. Oh, now this is interesting. Are you telling me that you know where the body was been all this time, Mr. Edgeworth? It's not such a big leap to think about what Miss Bound has told us already. Let's just say it wasn't just flavored ice that she removed from Mr. Frost's room back then. Very well. If you're confident in the claim, let's put us to the test. Tell me, Mr. Edgeworth, where exactly was Mr. Frost's body hidden?
Take that!
Oh, this is not right. I'm afraid you'll have to demonstrate me how this works, Mr. Edgeworth. It wouldn't work if he was in an ice sculpture. Don't know how she would get him in there really, but what about the blood on the statue? Like, where did the blood come from? Or is that just the
Take that!
So he wasn't wrapped in it still? All right. They've been hiding in the wing.
Take that!
A photograph of Mr. Art's works. And of the victim's body, Your Honor. You have to forgive me, but I don't see what you mean. Where exactly is this photograph is Mr. Frost's body?
Take that!
The Gemini sculpture? Yes, it may look like a sculpture at first glance, but in fact, Mr. Frost's corpse. You surely can't be serious. I don't see anything in the photograph to support such a wild claim.
Objection!
That's because a certain piece of evidence was used to hide the body in plain sight. But what piece of evidence might that be?
Take that!
One of the cloths from the Alton wing. Yes, it was made to glow just the right way. It's so visually convincing. You might mistake it for ice. Isn't that right, Miss Scone? Well, yes, dear. But you can make it look like just about anything, really. Even blazing fire. And in the right shade of blue, it would made it look like ice, yes, exactly like it. In fact,
Overruled!
it is not the case of a certain special device is needed to generate these colors, though.
Objection!
If you would care to take another look at the photograph of the Winter Wing, Your Honor, you'll notice that a small box connected to the bottom of the Gemini display case. That's one of its very light-emitting devices in question. Detective Gumshoe even confirmed its presence. In fact, this particular device went missing 18 years ago. Back then, it was no doubt firmly connected to the cloth inside the display case, which means Miss Bound had no choice to take it with her when she removed the sculpture. You see, this cloth and the light-emitting device were being used to create the illusion that Mr. Frost's body was in fact the statue carved from ice. No, this can't be. Wait, you're telling me that when we took a look at that photo in the Winter Wing, yes, we were standing right in front of the body. But the body and the cloth were recovered from the fountain. Hey, why were they found there if the body was supposed to be in the Winter Wing disguised as a sculpture?
Objection!
Because there would be no mystery as to how the body has been hidden if it was found as it is. Miss Bound needed to remove Mr. Frost's body, or Mr. Frost from the Winter Wing in order to throw us off the scent.
Overruled!
Ridiculous. I don't recall her sneaking around behind her backs to throw the body in the fountain. No, she didn't need to because she had another method at her disposal. Her trusty lift cart, the same cart that had proved so useful in executing her original theft. What? Ah! It is believed that the body into one of the other wings, and it floated down the stream to the fountain. The frozen body being quite solid, probably got stuck somewhere along the way. Which is why only the cloth appeared at first. The cloth that Miss Scone discovered. And then the body followed afterwards, once it had thawed though. It's an ingenious theory, Mr. Edgeworth. But, can you prove that it was me? It seems a little unfair to expect me to accept your accusations without proof, don't you think? What about an eyewitness? Do you think someone might have spotted her when she was moving the body? As a matter of fact, I do. And the contradiction in a piece of evidence I was provided will shed light exactly how Miss Ballard moved the body as well. Well, Mr. Edgeworth, do you have any evidence to support your allegation? Of course. I have a piece of very compelling proof right here. Then please present it to the court. It's not this one, is it? No, probably not. It wouldn't be the candy, would it?
Take that!
It is. More drawings. And is that me? Yes, Mr. Butch drew sketches of people as they passed through the fountain room. But what I'm interested in is in the cart we can see here. Miss Bound's serving cart. Or, that's not the right... Miss Bound's serving cart. What about it? You don't see it. She's using the same trick she used 18 years ago. Ergo. We know that Miss Bound was busy moving Mr. Frost's body and the picture was being drawn. What? If I may. I don't see Mr. Frost's body anywhere in that sketch. All I see is a picture of me delivering chocolates to everyone. Really? Then allow me to direct your attention to the color of the tablecloth, Miss Bound. I'd originally thought that Mr. Butts had made an error, but he assured me that it can't possibly be the case. This tablecloth appears to be light blue. Yes, a shade of tablecloth that Miss Bound doesn't seem to own. The cloth only appeared to be light blue due to the body hiding just underneath. What? But the shape of the cart is perfectly rectangular, just as one would expect. Surely it'd be indefinitely obvious that the tablecloth was being draped directly over the body, not if it was in a glass case. Not if the body had been placed inside one of the hollow zodiac blocks in the winter wing. Place one of these on the lift cart and you'd easily pass a muster as a regular serving cart, wouldn't you agree? Goddess of Justice. Miss Bound, surely now you must admit that it was you who moved the body, just as you did 18 years ago. I didn't expect you to do all that from a single simple sketch. But that sketch alone isn't really enough to prove your theory, is it? You needn't worry in that front. My case doesn't rest solely on Mr. Butt's artwork. Once you disposed of the body, your serving cart became a simple lift cart once more. which is exactly what we discovered here in this fountain room. And without a serving cart, you had to find some place to put your chocolates. My chocolates? The ones I was handing out? As we saw in the sketch, you had originally placed them on top of the cart. But the chocolates you gave us from your pocket. Oh yeah, mine was half melted. It was still super sweet and tasty though. Why did you suddenly feel the need to put the chocolates in your pocket, Miss Bound? It was because you no longer had a serving cart to put them on. That's why. Ah. One moment, please. You had explained what Miss Bound did with the chocolates and the lift cart. But what about the tablecloth? Where did it go? Indeed. If satching the chocolates in her pocket was the only solution I could think of, I doubt Miss Bound had the time to dispose of the entire tablecloth. Well, Mr. Edgeworth, do you have an answer for me? Miss Bound didn't hide or dispose of the tablecloth, Your Honor. In fact, it's right here in front of us. Perhaps you would care to enlighten us. Where exactly is the tablecloth Miss Bound used to hide the body? Well, it shouldn't be in the fountain anymore because what's her face found one in the fountain. Unless she put it back. That'd be a little weird. You just said it was inside this room, so not in this room wouldn't make any sense. So let's try on her person. Miss Bound had the tablecloth on her person and in plain view, in fact. In plain view? No, you surely don't mean. Miss Bound. It's the cloth around your waist, isn't it? And given the Zodiac block weren't kept in glass cases, that cloth would have been in direct contact with the ice. And all we need to do is confirm my theory is to test the cloth for traces of sugar used in Mr. Frost's work. The game is up, Miss Bound. It's time to come clean. You won't need to test the tablecloth. Everything you said is true. I stole Delicia's Infesticide Ultra, and I moved Mr. Frost's body. It was me. It was all me. Delicia, I'm sorry. Last week, I went into your bag and took it. And then, I put it in his pocket, hoping to make it look like he tried to do it himself in. And I also made sure to leave no fingerprints but yours. Just in case the police suspected foul play. Judy, no. Or Judy, you. Oh gosh. But Judes, why? Weren't you supposed to be on the same side? All fighting together for Free Samson? We were. But I couldn't afford to get arrested. Not yet. Not until I finally proven that Samson is innocent. I always planned to give myself up in the end, I swear. I know, it's easy to say that now, but why do it in this way though? It's not like you. I'm sorry, Miss Offender. I've caused you so much trouble. I've been the guilty party all along, ever since that day 18 years ago. Are you trying to tell us that the true culprit in the IS-7 incident was you? I committed a terrible crime and took the sculptures, and I stole them purely for selfish reasons. The moment that Mr. Frost died, they became mere entries in a confectionery contest. Because the final works of Samson's favorite artist, I couldn't allow them just to melt away. Not before he came home. And that meant I couldn't let anybody near them, not even the police. So I hid them. I knew it was wrong, but I just had to do it. Or had to. I put them in a cold storage room for safekeeping. But what I accidentally done was far worse than anything I could have possibly imagined. Because who would have thought that Mr. Frost's body itself was posing as one of the sculptures? So she didn't know about the body when she stole the sculptures. How did his body get there though? Samson is a kind man, a saint. He could never kill anybody, never. And yet, because of what he did, the police never found Mr. Frost's body and Samson was found guilty. After all I've done, after all he done for me, he was my family. The only family I ever had. He was the most important person in the entire world to me, and Dudes. After his conviction, I was forced out of our home. I was finally able to return only a few days ago, and when I did, I went to the cold storage room to check up on the sculptures, and that's when I saw it. Mr. Frost's body had been there the whole time. Of course, by that point, the statute of limitations had expired. So I did what I did today, because it was the only way I could think of to make things right. It seems I had misunderstood her intentions. Everything she done really has all been for Tangaroa's sake. Hey, what are you thinking about, Mr. Edgeworth? Something had been puzzling me. Why did Miss Bond use poison gas? Why not more reliable method? And why disguise the Autumn Wing as the Winter Wing? The only reason I can think is to confuse someone who was here 18 years ago. Yeah, I wonder what she had in mind. If she was trying to prove that Mr. Tangaroa was innocent, Miss Bound's ultimate goal must be to... I would say find the true killer. Could she have been trying to discover the identity of the true culprit? Miss Bound, your ultimate aim was to see Mr. Tangaroa cleared of all charges, correct? And to that end, you had to expose the real killer and have the police find the body from 18 years ago. Is my understanding of your intentions correct? Exhibiting the sculptures was sure force the killer to return to the crime scene. After all, they were the only person apart from you who knew the body was hidden in the icework. So they would have freaked out thinking the body would have been discovered and come running, yeah? Exactly. But Miss Bound ran the risk that the killer might successfully cover their tracks this time. In a worst case scenario, they might have been able to remove Mr. Frost's body from the scene. So how could she lure the true killer into revealing themselves without putting vital evidence at risk? Oh, I see what you're getting at. You're saying that the Autumn Wing was all the Winter Wingy. I am. You were betting on one thing, Miss Bound, weren't you? That whoever opened the Pisces case, you had so carefully disguised as the Genmine case, would be the real perpetrator of the IS-7 incident. No. But that would mean the real killer was...
Overruled.
Enough. Not another word. Do you realize the implications of what you're saying, Mr. Edgeworth? Are you prepared to stand behind the accusation you are clearly about to make? Miss Bound's trap was set for Mr. Frost's killer, meaning whoever found themselves caught in that trap is highly likely to be guilty party. But I lack the evidence to support an assertion. To accuse someone without any evidence is not to be done so lightly, so... Should I really go ahead and make my accusation and Mr. Frost's killer nonetheless? I guess make it, because why would you not? My ultimate goal is to see the truth exposed. And to do that, I need to seize the moment. Yes, Judge Gavelle, I'm prepared to stand by my accusation. I know exactly who is to blame for the IS-7 incident. Carmelo Gusto. Mr. Gusto, the victim of the poison gas attack and the perpetrator behind the IS-7 incident. Gusty? Mr. Gusto? Miss Bound. As we have established, you knew that opening of the gallery would lure the real culprit. And you set up the poison gas trap in order to catch them. Do you dispute the facts thus far? You're a very impressive man, Mr. Edgeworth. Just like your father. And of course, you're absolutely right. Then perhaps you could tell us exactly what happened in your own words. Of course, I have nothing to hide anymore. I so might as well tell you everything. As you said, I set a trap here in the gallery to try and catch Mr. Frost's killer. Before we opened, I made sure that the door to the Autumn Wing was the only one that was unlocked. When opening time came, I went around to unlock the doors of various rooms. And I found that the Autumn Wing had been locked from inside. The killer is on the other side of that door. I thought, well, it frightened me. And then she simply walked away, leaving him fall victim to the poison trap. And when I heard that Mr. Gusto was being treated for a gas inhalation, that's when I knew he was the murderer. And all that left was for the police to find Mr. Frost's body, and then Samson would finally be proven innocent. At least, that was my plan. Judes, why didn't you just tell me? You know I'm always here for you, right? We could have found another way. It didn't have to be like this. Thank you, Mr. Fender. You've been very so kind to me all these years. But I had to plot revenge. But I'm the only one who created this mess. So it was up to me to try to clean it up. I didn't care what it took, as long as I could get Samson out of that awful place. Judy. 18 years ago, the police managed to cover up the fact that Mr. Frost's body had gone missing. If I went to them now and said it reappeared, I was afraid I might have tried to cover things up again. So I worked to set off I tried to set off a very public incident here in the gallery, in front of many witnesses as possible. I'm so sorry, Judy. You, Samson, Gregory, I let you all down. Fender, this can't be easy for him. No, I'm the one who should be apologizing. Mr. Edgeworth, Mr. Fender, I hope one day you can forgive me. And whatever punishment I had to face, I'm ready to accept it. But please, if I may ask you one thing, that you simply must clear Mr. Sampson's name. The way to the truth of these past 18 years had come to light, unexpected to say at least. And yet, it had only set us down towards an even more shocking end. To be continued. I'm kind of wondering why and how did he do it? Why and how did you do it, Mr. Gusto? What did you do? Why did you kill him? You were buddies. Remember? Miss Bound, are you feeling a little calmer now? Yes. Good. Then allow me to get to the point. Regardless of your intentions, you broke the law. Yes, I understand. Nevertheless, I understand that you did what you did in order to prove Mr. Tangaroa's innocence. Therefore, the real culprit is really someone else. Then we have the duty to reinvestigate the case. Listen, Gavel, go away. We need to... There's nothing to suggest that anything nefarious took place in the official IS-7's incident records. Right now, there's nothing to suggest that we should take Miss Bound at her word either. So our first order of business should to be arrest the culprit of the case before us, Miss Bound herself.
Objection!
Official records cannot always be trusted, Judge Gavel, especially since those prosecutors who would think nothing of twisting the facts. Are you suggesting that the committee at the time overlooked just such a prosecutor? We all know that's a yes. That for you and your people to figure out. However, it is in fact the autopsy report was faked. Seeing that Mr. Frost's body is only just found now, there really is something of Mr. Von Karma in you, Mr. Edgeworth. How so exactly? By continually defying the will of the committee and bending the truth to fit your needs, that's how. What did I bend? Perhaps it is time to understand how, no, the committee sees this case. Oh, now I gotta rebut you? The committee is willing to accept that Mr. Von Karma falsified Mr. Frost's autopsy report. Even still, Mr. Von Karma only managed to have Mr. Tangaroa convicted as an accomplice. I personally have come to believe that the real culprit behind the IS-7 incident is Miss Bound. Her plan to poison and kill Mr. Guster today was an attempt to frame him for Mr. Frost's murder. I don't think that's how it went. And this is how the committee sees things, is it? That's how I see it. It is. As always, I act solely in service of the law and order. It sounds to me like she's acting in service of the committee in covering up the truth. And I can't change her mind. There will be no saving Mr. Tangaroa or Miss Bound. Alright, let's go. Press.
Hold it!
If you accept that Mr. Von Karma falsified the report, then why won't you reinvestigate the case? Because of the goddess of justice is never wrong. I just do it whenever I feel like it. Oh. Despite the blatant evidence tampering, you sure Precious Goddess is into that? Almost makes you think that the committee might have other reasons not to wanting to look into again. Further investigation is simply unnecessary since the Goddess of Justice has already spoken. Is that right?
Hold it!
I believe it was a confession that sealed Mr. Tangaroa's fate in the end. A confession secured by Mr. Von Karma, which should surely cast doubt on the final verdict itself.
Overruled.
Samson Tangaroa confessed to the initial investigating officer, one Detective Ian Seidman. The official records state that it was his interrogations that led to the conviction. Therefore, all I can say to you is the Goddess of Justice has already spoken. Unbelievable. She just won't budge at all. Are these committee guys really that big of a deal? In many ways, they are a prosecutor's worst nightmare. So kind of how the police are to a great thief, huh? Funny how you don't seem to have a problem working with the police when it suits you, though. Yeah.
Hold it!
Are you suggesting that Mr. Tangaroa and Miss Bound killed Mr. Frost together? Why not? You could even imagine they split their roles as less. Mr. Tangaroa could have been the one that committed the act itself, while Miss Bound was to remove the body. What? The thought that we could ever... And it got cut off. You stole his corpse and hid it for 18 years. Is it really surprising that Miss Bound was freely confessed to all of her crimes? Now, it is not time to speculate on what else she might have done in the past. Very well, then let us pass judgment on what we know she did in the present.
Hold it!
Alright, let's press it. Why would Miss Bound have chosen to frame Mr. Gusto for the murder? No doubt because he suspected her of being the real culprit. He may have entered what he thought was the Winter Wing simply to see the Gemini statue was genuine. Little did he know that he would be greeted by a trap designed to silence him. A trap that nearly worked.
Objection!
Do you have any evidence to support that line of reasoning? Unfortunately, Mr. Gusto remains in critical condition. It would be difficult to prove anything until he regains consciousness. In other words, there is little we can do for now. On the contrary, there is plenty we can do. You still have not grasped the situation, have you? Then allow me to spell it out for you. We have all the evidence we need to explain both the IS-7 incident and the poison attack. Oh, did it add one or two more? Well, let's express this anyway. All the evidence you need. In a matter of the IS-7 incident, we have the body, murder weapon, and two suspects. As for the poison gas attack, we have sources of two chemicals that Miss Bomb's confession. And as for you, Mr. Edgeworth, we have enough to evidence to see that you yourself will have to answer for the committee in a former hearing. What? Whoa. That doesn't sound good. Don't worry, Mazarina. If nothing else, there's always more. Welcome to the Edgeworth & Co. Your Honor, I'd greatly appreciate if you could stay focused on the matter at hand. Haha, of course. Now, where was I? We have therefore determined that there is no need to investigate the case any further. Well, let's press it. You really mean to assert that there is no loose ends, nothing less to investigate, none at all? All the evidence has been examined at length, and there is nothing more learned from them. Therefore, I see no further to prolong this trial.
Objection!
Your Honor, there's certainly something still that needs to be examined. The hammer is about to fall, Mr. Edgeworth. The only hard evidence can stop it now. Present what you think requires further deliberation. Now, assuming that there really is anything left, that is. This isn't over yet. Not by a long shot. There's still one thing we don't have an answer to. And it's time to set up a point out to Judge Gambit. We have all the evidence. Therefore, we determine there's any investigator person. What about this? This little handprint that we never figured out for anything.
Objection!
No? Okay. We have all the evidence we need to explain both the IS-7 and the poison gas attack.
Objection!
Nope. Okay, well. Okay. We have all the evidence to explain both the IS-7 incident and the poison gas attack. Makes me... Do I even need to... Organizer. The detailed assassin were due to body gone missing.
Objection!
No? Oh. We have all the evidence we need to explain the IS-7 incident and the poison gas attack. The plan is to poison and kill Mr. Dusko today in order to frame him for Mr. Frost's murder. Maybe it's this one. How would I prove that with this evidence? Sketch Larry. Yes, solid.
Objection!
Nope. I don't think her plan was to put. Well, I don't think. Okay, if she was planning to poison somebody, it would have been Mr. Gusto, though. She was just trying to go after the person who did it. So let's try poison gas ingredients.
Objection!
No.
Objection!
No on this one too. I want this one. Let me go super quick on it. Or was it a new one? And that's why I went on me skip through it. Ah, shoot. We have all the evidence we need to explain both the IS-7 and the poison gas attack. Something tells me we don't have all the evidence. I want to I wonder if this is used for anything.
Objection!
Definitely not that. We have all the evidence we need to explain both the IS-7 incident and the poison gas attack. Statue made victims 18 years ago. Photo Frost Gusto and their sons. Gusto's son visited his father daily up through the semifinals.
Objection!
I used the teapot thinking maybe like, why was there traces of what's it called in here? That wasn't it.
Objection!
That was it? Oh, jeez. Okay. I'm afraid there's still one question concerning the IS-7 incident remains unanswered, Your Honor. Who would mind, or would you mind taking a look at this? What is it? Their test results carried out on the liquid at the bottom of the Gemini case in the Winter Wing. As you can see, traces of blood were detected. The question is, whose? Until that question is answered, I hardly think you can call, or you can claim that you can claim to have all the evidence. There was blood in that Gemini case? Why did I not hear about this from Eustace? Because Detective Gumshoe informed me of the results directly. I was planning to tell Mr. Winter about it myself, of course. You, You kept this to yourself until now, despite having no jurisdiction here whatsoever? Mark my words, the committee will hear about what you have done here today. As ever, my interest is the truth, and if mistakes were made in the past, they must be rectified. You must report to me. If you must report me to the committee, then so be it. But in return, we must be allowed to investigate this case to the very end. That's not my decision to make. You would need to discuss it with Eustace. Why? Guess who's back, losers? And with good news, too. It was a close call for a minute there, but Carmelo Augusto is alive. The real culprit. He made it. He made it. You're the ones who found me. Yep, long time no see, Gusto. You're the attorney's assistant. You've grown. And you have an assistant of your own now. Assistant? No, I'm... He hasn't got the gig just yet. This is Gregory Edgeworth's son. Prosecutor Miles Edgeworth at your service. Fate moves in mysterious ways. I am in your debt. If you hadn't found me in time, I wouldn't be here, thank you. Oh, you're very welcome. After all, if you haven't lived, we wouldn't be able to ask you what really happened 18 years ago. What are you talking about? We figured out quite a bit while you were out cold, including the fact that you probably are the guy who offed poor Artie Frost. Is that true? Miss Bound set up a very elaborate trap to catch Mr. Frost's murderer. A trap that involved rigging the Pisces case with poison gas. Perhaps in the light of the fact that you could tell us your own words what happened back then. Or perhaps you'd rather exercise your right to remain silent. Oh, it's not that. Gus's here is a fan of the old meditation. You know, and all that jazz. Wow, sleeping while standing. Pretty cool. That's one heck of a talent. Except there's no sleeping involved in meditation, Kay. Hey, Gusto, old pal. How about you snap out of it and tell us what went down back then? I was caught in the girl's trap, so I must be the killer. Is that your idea of a joke? I'm the victim here. Indeed you are, Mr. Gusto. And there's no evidence that you have done anything wrong yet. Mr. Edgeworth and Mr. Fender are merely speculating. Rest assured, they have no authority here. And that you may pay them no heed. At least somebody here seems to be on my side. Judge Verity Gavel. It's a pleasure, Mr. Gusto. I will assist you in any way you may require. Perhaps you could begin by explaining what actually happened 18 years ago to Mr. Edgeworth. Fine. You want me to prove I'm innocent, Mr. Prosecutor? I'll be happy to.
Objection!
This is how you mean to play it, Miss Judge Gavel. You're hoping that Mr. Gusto will tell you to hide what happened instead of trying to correct the record. I believe in only infallible judgment of the goddess of justice. Except it is us humans who make the actual judgment calls in the court of law. And so long as there are those who use the law to their advantage, our rulings are fallible indeed. All you would use your position to further obscure the truth, then neither nor I will forgive you. Ha ha ha. Shh, we shall see about that. What do you advise I do, Judge Gavel? It would seem that you are under suspicion because it was you who triggered the poison gas. Specifically by opening the Pisces case lid. Would you be so kind to share why with us? Understood. I came here to see Frost sculpture, simple as that. I made a mistake with opening it. I made a mistake with the opening times. And I arrived a half an hour early. Just bound. Was there no one at the reception decks around that time? I left the main entrance unguarded and unlocked, just in case a killer made an appearance. I was also busy making preparations elsewhere, all the way up to the gallery's opening. So no, there was no one at the front, on the first floor then. But I did make sure all the wings were locked up tight, all except the autumn wing, that is. I see. She did all that just to steer the culprit into the autumn wing, which is precisely where Miss Augusta went. Sneaking into a building is pretty suspicious, however you slice it. Silence in the courtroom. I will permit no objections or interventions unless there is some evidence the witness is lying. The courtroom. You know this is an art gallery, right? Mr. Gusto. If you please, continue with explaining why you opened the Pisces case. I wanted to see Frost's work up close. So when I went to the Gemini, sorry, I guess it was supposed to be the Pisces statue. I saw that the lid was frozen tight, so I grabbed a blowtorch from nearby and tried to open it. When I finally got it open, gas came pouring out. Fascinating. It's sort of flawless testimony attorneys can only dream of. Yeah, that's everything sounds like a lie kind. I am none too satisfied with Mr. Gusto's explanation myself. Alas, therefore, there is no evidence to refute it. Come on, there must be something. It's Bound's story you should be questioning, not mine. I'm not the one who set up the gas trap. She could have killed anybody with that thing.
Objection!
She turned on the sprinklers as soon as the gas was released. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was gunning for the killer, nobody else. That killer being you, old pal. So you believe in the self-confused criminal. Miss Bound is far from blameless. In this affair. And she'll have to pay for her crimes. But so will Mr. Frost's killer. You seem to be determined to pin Frost's murder on me. But I had no reason to kill him. And you have no evidence to prove otherwise. Can we really not prove the killer's he's the killer, Mr. Edgeworth? Mr. Gusto fell victim of a poison gas. That is much indisputable. Yet, no matter how suspicious his actions may be, his actions in the present may seem. They prove nothing about the past. Yeah, but then what about you, Mr. Fender? There must be something we can do. You're right. We may not have the evidence, but we have plenty of intel. Let's see now. If Mr. Gusto killed Mr. Frost, he must have had a reason. He claims to not have a motive, but that can't really be true, can it? What if he did? He has no one. Not many people commit murder just for fun. In fact, your old man had a little back and forth with Mr. Von Karma about probable motive too, remember? How can you possibly say that with certainty? If their relationship had been broken down for some reason, then that could very well have been the motive behind this murder. Von Karma wouldn't let us just talk to Gusto back then, but we can now. If we can put the pieces together, I think the picture we've been looking for might just emerge. Yes, I think you might be right. I need to think back over everything we know about the IS-7 incident, especially the questions that never got answered. And the finger marks? Were you the one wearing gloves? Miss Scone denied the finger marks on the frame were hers. But if they were Mr. Gusto's, perhaps we wanted to take a look through the ultimate cookbook for himself. So he asked me to go put in a new cartridge. He seemed to think there should have been more shots left than there were. In other words, the film ran out sooner than expected. Yes, the number of shots he took didn't line up with the number of shots remaining. But he thought maybe he just lost track somewhere along the way. My father noticed these things for a reason. I need to just piece them together correctly. In the absence of evidence, it's the only way to the truth. Mr. Gusto, you and Mr. Frost conspired to create works for the contest together, did you not? Huh. So how do you know my little secret? Mr. Fender was kind enough to inform me. Mr. Frost was in charge of designs, while you were in charge of the flavor. Is that correct? What can I say? I still had a long enough travel on the road to becoming a master confectioner. But you only collaborated up through the semifinal. Something changed after that. We both wanted to show what we could do. To show that we were better than Tangaroa.
Objection!
Then why did you help Mr. Frost with his entry for the final? Yeah. Well, what grounds do you have to say that? Your own statement, made to Mr. Von Karma 18 years ago. You told him that you had been working together right up until the final day before, or the day before the final. Mr. Frost's entry was carved entirely from the blocks of flavored ice. Flavored ice, which would have needed at least a day to freeze. And whose flavors would therefore have already been prepared by Mr. Gusto. Yes, which lines perfectly up with Mr. Gusto told me. That he helped Frost until the day before the final. In that case, why didn't Mr. Frost reciprocate to help Mr. Gusto in return? I can hardly expect to read the minds of the dead. So why didn't Mr. Frost help you in return? Ugh. I submit that your relationship broke down for some reason. And that became the basis of your motive for murder. That's not how it was. Sure, we stopped working together, but it was all perfectly friendly. You stopped working together because it was friendly way? Kind of hard to imagine, but okay. Besides, how do you think I did it exactly? You think I just strolled into Tangaroa's room and killed Frost? I couldn't have killed the man while Tangaroa was in there working on his chocolate pieces, could I? You see, I can't have been me. I wouldn't be so sure. There must be a window of time, so Tangaroa wasn't in this room. And if I can prove that, I can prove Mr. Gusto had an opportunity to kill Frost. Photographing the cookbook's contents would have been the perfect way to steal the secrets undetected. And what if Mr. Gusto did that? What if he used Mr. Tangaroa's camera to photograph the book? It'd be the perfect crime, so much better than stealing it and getting chased by the cops. A sneaky snapshot for 20, huh? That could work. The only question is, when would he have done it? Good question. What about during the afternoon tea? Didn't Delicia say that Mr. Gusto and Frost had missed out on their little tea party they had? Which brings me to our next question. When do we have it certain that Mr. Frost was still alive? After the contest began, no one saw hide nor hair of Frost, as he was secluded himself in his room. And the only person capable of entering his locked room was Tangaroa, possessing, as he did, the only key. Miss Scone, you and Mr. Tangaroa's works were the only ones you sampled? No, dear. I couldn't help myself. When I finished my afternoon tea, I tiptoed over to Chillywink's room and had a little taste too. Mr. Frost had kept himself inside his room after the contest had started, but he was gone by the time Miss Scone stuck into the sample of his work, meaning there's a good chance he was murdered before the end of the tea. Oh. We can be sure that Mr. Frost was alive until the beginning of afternoon tea. Making tea time the only window during which Mr. Gusto could have killed him. Are you satisfied with Mr. Gusto's story now, Mr. Edgeworth? Sadly, I'm afraid I'm still rather unsatisfied. But things were finally starting to become clear, and the truth would soon come to light at last. Do you mean to say that you have uncovered new evidence? Evidence, no. I was hoping I might convince Mr. Gusto to open up about it instead. Oh, mind games time again. It is. Mr. Gusto, I have a question for you. I said I have a question for you. What is it? If you choose to make your entry for the final day of your own, I told you, I wanted to test myself. I wanted to prove that I was the best in the world.
Objection!
If that were the case, then surely you wouldn't have chosen to cheat in the first place. So tell me, Mr. Gusto, why did you feel the need to team up with Mr. Frost? "18 years ago, Mr. Gusto and Mr. Frost collaborated in a confectionery contest. But why did you work together, and why did they enter the contest in the first place? That information I need to get out of my opponent somehow." 4. Mr. Gusto has a habit of pretending to be asleep when things aren't going his way. Let's start on by focusing why he chooses to work with Mr. Frost. By my hand, now is the time to dig up the truth that was buried all those years ago. Just comments. Mr. Gusto, what inspired you to collaborate with Mr. Frost? We were acquaintances before we were contestants. He was interested in entering contests, so we decided to sign up together. And your decision to pair up with a sculptor had nothing to do with your lack of faith in your skills? You don't know me. We joined forces because we wanted to make the most of our creations possible, that's all. Miss Frost's son, or Frost's son and mine, are in the same grade school, so we got along pretty well. Oh, so we were just friends who happened to try Little World's greatest confectioner. Pretending to be asleep when going gets tough won't work on me, I'm afraid. Mr. Frost was a sculptor, Mr. Gusto. I doubt he cared much a winning title for confectioners. In which case, he probably had a different motive for taking part in the contest, wouldn't you say? Fine. It was me. I wanted that title. Frost was only in it for the prize, the ultimate cookbook. I see. And since your objectives... of a child? So neatly, you decided to work together. But then something happened, a breakdown in your relationships perhaps, if you wanted to know why. Mr. Prosecutor, I'm still unwell after my brush with death. Push me too hard, and I'll be on my way back to the medical room. No, wait. Well, you better wrap up quickly. I'm already dangerously low on patience. Mr. Gusto is trying to desperately make escape, but he's not going anywhere yet, as long as he's still keeping things from me. So let's figure out what he really was after next. There's no time to lose. I need to pick the right line of questioning here and fast. You wanted to appear on Mr. Tangaro's TV show, didn't you? Oh, Cookin' Conga? I believe it was called Bacon Bob. You really think people would want to watch me dance like an idiot while I work? No. It might be much for younger viewers. I thought not. Listen, I know what I'm good at, and prancing around on TV, isn't it? Maybe you should focus on what you're good at too, because certainly it isn't the right questions. Touche, Mr. Gusto. I need to choose my words more carefully. All that ding me? You two had your eyes on something other than the title, didn't you? After all, I'm not sure the title of World's Greatest Confectioner even counts for that much. Now you're insulting the way of the confectioner. My goal, my only goal, was to win that title. I didn't care about anything else. You have no idea how much it would have meant to me. Look, my sense of design may not have been up to snuff back then, but you should see me now. Oh, so you improved. You bet I have. I didn't do all that training in Zheng Fa for nothing. I looked up to Tangaroa. You know, spent hours poring over his designs of his work. He even used to watch his show with my son. Sounds to me like Mr. Tangaroa's work was especially influential in your studies. And with his recipe book, you might even have become the best someday. Huh. Maybe. That book was a real treasure, no doubt that any confectioner would have wanted it. So you claim that your only goal was to win the title, and yet you also seem to have an interest in the contents prize, the ultimate cookbook. The greatest collection of recipes by the world's greatest confectioner. I can't say I have absolutely no interest in it. And even if I did, what exactly is so wrong with that? Nothing, I suppose. Only that the book contained recipes for medicines and not desserts. And everyone who entered the contest supposedly knew that. I feel like I'm finally getting somewhere. I can't let him slip from my grasp now. I just need to stay calm and keep the pressure on. Okay, let's find out why he wanted the cookbook. Did you know how valuable the cookbook really was? What kind of question is that? It was a collecting of Tangaroa's recipes. There wasn't a confectioner in the world who wouldn't want to get their hands on it. I don't have a clue on how to proceed with this line of questioning. I better try another tact. Your plan was to win the cookbook, to use it to help you with your own creations. What else? A book that could improve my craft tenfold. You could have made a lot of money if you sold it. I don't know how much of that actually is in there. But if it was worth more than money, I tell you that. Come on now. Mr. Gusto, I think you know more about the Ultimate Cookbook than you claim. They told us a little about at the start of the contest. You know what kind of recipes it actually contained, don't you? And that they weren't dessert recipes at all. I see you did your homework. Fine. So you know what it really was in there. The Ultimate Cookbook, or the Angel's Cookbook, to give it its proper title. It collected chemical formulas and ways to synthesize new medicines nobody had ever heard of. So he knew that the cookbook was actually contained recipes for medicines. This could be an important clue. Time to deploy my clue. Your designs may have improved thanks to training in Zheng Fa, but you clearly didn't do enough work on your skills of deception. You already immediately knew that the Ultimate Cookbook was a collection of recipes and medicine. thereby making your interest in not gastronomical but pharmaceutical in nature. You're a confectioner, Mr. Gusto. You had no professional interest in revolutionary new medicines, which suggests that your interest must have been personal. I underestimated you. Fine, you're right. Winning the title wasn't the only reason I entered the contest. I needed one of the recipes in that book. It was for my son. He was sick. He was. Tell me more. That's none of your business. I've told you as much as you need to know. He looks rattled, but I can let him off the hook. Fine. What's this mystery illness was? I almost got to the bottom of this. I can feel it. Just a few more moves. So you needed the cookbook to cure your son. Yeah, nowadays, you can get the medication he needed anywhere. But back then, the book was already hope. Which is why I don't dare waste my time on fancy tea parties. I had to give it all my work. And what about Mr. Tangaroa's work? Surely the tea break gave you the perfect opportunity to steal a glance at it. What makes you think I had the energy or the time and what makes you think that I had the energy or the time to care about the others had made? You're still recovering, so you got nothing to say. Let me go back to the medical room. Wait. I may have been a little more proactive. Oh, that ding me? That's annoying. I need to study my bone and pick my responses accordingly. Tell me a little bit more about your son. He was my pride and joy, my biggest fan. And you entered the contest in order to help him. You clearly don't have children of your own. Any father would have done the same. I would have done anything to help him. Anything. He would come here at the contest venue too. Right up to the semi-final. Really? He didn't get in the way of your work. If you were trying to beat Samson Tangaroa, surely you didn't have time to look after a child. Yeah, well, I wanted to do what I could for him. He said he wanted to be the first to try my creations. You said your son was sick, Mr. Gusto, and yet you were able to come and join you for the contest? It wasn't that kind of illness. Nothing life-threatening anyway. This feels like it could be an important clue. Wait, did I pick the wrong one? Or did I? Something did nothing seem to have any flavor. It must have been the nerves or something. Nothing Mr. Gusto tasted had any flavor. That seems like it could be an important clue. I've exhausted this having a worker. Let me try another. Oh. Could you tell me the name of the disease your son suffered from? Yeah. You're a real cold customer, Mr. Prosecutor. Isn't it enough that he was seriously ill? Why would you force me to tell you more? Time to deploy my clue. You already shared with us your son's illness wasn't life-threatening. So why are you so reluctant to share any further details? It may not have been life-threatening, but that doesn't mean it couldn't have been life-altering. I see. It must have been very hard on both of you. Of course it was. That's why I did everything I could find a cure. We were so desperate. He couldn't taste anything, not even his favorite desserts. I understand it. The Ultimate Cookbook contains the recipe for this, a very particular medication. One that Mr. Tangaroa used to cure himself of his own taste disorder. So he had it too? Two, you say? Your son has a taste disorder then, am I correct? How did I let that slip? You've been asking me to believe that you needed to win the cookbook in order to cure your son. But was it really the case? Yeah, of course it was. What are you saying? I'm saying that I'm not sure that's true based on everything you told me. Time to deploy my clue. The taste disorder are different to live with. Isn't easy not being able to enjoy your food. You should know, after all. You just told me that you experienced something like that during the contest. You said nothing you sampled had any flavor. Those were your words, correct? Which would seem to suggest that you were suffering from a taste disorder. A confectioner without a sense of taste, not exactly ideal. Are you sure it wasn't actually your own condition you were seeking of a cure, Mr. Gusto? I've had enough of your speculations. I managed fine in that contest. I made all my own entries, no problem. Sorry, but I'm afraid you're contradicting your own testimony. You already admitted that you and Mr. Frost had worked together during the contest. You are too late to claim you did it all on your own now. You would have us believe that you are the man of your principle, a dedicated student of the confectioner's art. And yet you abandoned your principles and conspired with Mr. Frost to rig the contest. And so you could cure your own taste disorder. You got me, Mr. Prosecutor. As I said, my sense of taste was shot. My son's was fine. I kept it hidden for so long, 18 years, and nobody knew. Sadly, you can lie to others, but you can't lie to me. Both Mr. Gusto and Mr. Frost entered the contest hoping to obtain the Ultimate Cookbook for the medicine that would cure Mr. Gusto's disorder and the money it would bring in Mr. Frost. Thus an uneasy alliance was forged. And that, I believe, is checkmate. My chess. Checkmate. I'll admit it. You're good. I never told anyone of this. But you figured it all out anyway. It's true. 18 years ago, I developed a juice. What's that word? This is a taste disorder that makes it so you can't taste anything at all. A confectioner's worst nightmare. Mr. Fender. Is it what Mr. Tangaroa had as well? No, the big man had what they called dissociated taste disorder. Basically, some things could taste just fine, while others had no flavor at all. So he suffered too. Can't be easy. But when there wasn't a way to cure it on the market, which is why you needed Mr. Tangaroa's cookbook. Do you admit now that you have a real reason you've entered the contest? It was the only It was only one of the reasons. I wasn't lying when I said I wanted the title. When I put my mind to something, I get it done. And I won't lose to anybody. I may not have been able to taste it then, but it still knew my stuff. I was good enough to win. Oh, so you went to the final thinking you stood a good chance of winning. Of course. What was it Fender said about Mr. Tangaroa thought of Mr. Gusso's creations? Mr. Gusso's creations were perfectly balanced of flavor and design, at least up through the semifinal. But disappointingly, his entry for the final was subpar on both counts. You were told that your entry for the final was far from prize-winning taste sensation you described. What happened, Mr. Gusto? What went wrong? What went wrong that day? Fine. You want me to talk, I'll talk. But you're not going to like what I have to say. Russ and I were working together right up through the semifinal. I had handled the flavor. He did the designing. But I wanted to face Tangaroa in the final on my own. No help, just me and my skill. So I helped Frost with his entry, but mine I did alone. If it didn't taste good in the final, that's on me. What can I say? I lack training. That's all there is to it. Happy now? There don't seem to be any obvious contradictions in his testimony. Yep. Not that I thought it'd be easy to get anything real out of him. He's managed not to let slip what really happened for 18 years after all. Why don't we try pushing him a bit, Miles Reno? If you can't shake something loose, I think I just might have to, Fender. Chris. Frost was in charge of designing the work you both submitted while you handled the taste. Yeah, he was a sculptor, a craftsman, and had a sense of design was second to none. But he was clueless about confectionery, which is where I came in. We each did each other's what each other couldn't. The boy you did not have an eye for aesthetics, not even the simple stuff. Yeah. How do you like me now? Huh? The national symbol of Zangfa. Oh yeah, it's a phoenix. That's awesome. I'll say, pretty different stuff you were pumping out 18 years ago. Behold the fruits of my trading. I dedicated my whole life to my craft. But back then, both were needed each other's help, so we joined hands until the final.
Hold it!
Hold it. You were serious about winning the title then? Of course. The art of confectionery is my life. Why wouldn't I have wanted to be crowned the greatest? But I still have a lot to learn back then. Guess there's no surprise my work wasn't up to scratch. But the title wasn't the only thing you wanted. There was the cookbook too. And you wanted the book even more than you wanted the title. Isn't that right, Mr. Gusto? Ugh.
Overruled.
Mr. Edgeworth, you're badgering the witness who is still suffering from the effects of today's attack. I cannot allow this harassment to continue. Ugh, I understand you're under, but... Ignore him, Mr. Gusto. You need not answer that vile prosecutor's question. But please continue with your testimony in your own time.
Hold it!
So you're saying that Mr. Frost didn't help you at all? But he helped you until then, correct? But it's strange for him to stop so late in the contest, no? Strange or not, the truth could be he had his reasons too. Would you not? Or would you know? If he's lying, he's going to be a headache to prove. 18 years is a long time. Not unless that gizmo of yours has a built-in lie detector, Kay. If it did, I'd have stolen the show from Mr. Edgeworth long before now. Don't worry, Fender. I can tell you he's lying. No doohickey assistance required. Please, Mr. Gusto, continue your testimony.
Hold it!
And yet, I heard that your creations prior to the final were scored highly for their flavor. So what went wrong? What was some kind of cooking accident on that day? No, nothing like that. It was, I told you, I had a taste disorder. My sense of taste failed me. Simple as that. But Mr. Frost's entry was complimented on its flavor. Your sense of taste hadn't failed you then. Did something happen overnight? I don't think he's going to spill any more beans, Mr. Edgeworth. Then perhaps I should tell him something else. Did something change between the semifinal and the final, Mr. Gusto? Not really.
Hold it!
So you really completed your final entry without Mr. Frost's help. I may not have been his designs to lean on, but I knew I was still solid when it came to flavor. So the visuals were the only thing changed between the semi-final and final. Sure, Gusty, old pal. Gonna have to call you out on that one, I'm afraid. It wasn't just the look that got the big thumbs down on the judgment time. It got thrashed on flavor too. It doesn't sound like much of a winner to me. Despite his confidence, Mr. Gusto failed on flavor too. The lack of Mr. Frost's assistance shouldn't have affected that. So there was some other difference. 18-year-old mystery. And the key to unraveling it is finally in my grasp. I just didn't remember everything Fender told me about my father discovered. I just gotta figure out where to put the evidence. Hmm. Not sure which one to do here. So I helped him his entry. So I helped him with his entry, but I did mine alone. Maybe this one.
Objection! Objection!
Okay, that's not. Does not taste good. I lack training. Okay. Hmm. Any difference between the semifinal and the final? Doesn't help. I don't know what I present here.
Objection!
There we go. I can think of one significant difference between the semifinal and the final, Mr. Gusto. Your son. This is him in the photograph, correct? You told me he was here with you through the semifinal. He was. What of it? What indeed? He was here with you until the semifinal. He suddenly wasn't here for the final. And just as suddenly your work went from being lauded for its flavor for being lambasted for it. I don't think that's a coincidence, do you? He wasn't spending quality time with his father. He was playing as much of a pivotal role than that. I just wanted to see him see me. I just wanted him to see me hard at work, to show him I was trying my best for us. Who knows? Maybe it was him being here that helped me do so well those early rounds. He talks a good game, but nothing about this guy screams super dad to me. Indeed, thankfully, he would only have to give such an idea credence if his stories were true. After all, how much could encouragement of one small boy affect the taste of a grown man's work? Mr. Gusto prided himself on flavor of his creations, but then he lost his sense of taste. He must have had enough time remaining. His high standards such a devastating loss of us. I'm sure your son was here to cheer you on, but that wasn't all that he was here to do, was it? You're very suspicious man, Mr. Prosecutor. But why not try answering that yourself for a change? What was an elementary school kid doing here other than to support his father? Either taste or to make. I'm gonna go with taste first. Your son knew the taste of your work pretty well, I imagine, Mr. Gusto. He was my biggest fan, of course he knew it. In which case, he would have been a good judge of whether something tasted on brand, so to speak, no? What are you implying? You already told us that you were suffering from a taste disorder. I admit it. You're good. I never told anybody about this, and you figured it out anyway. It's true, 18 years ago I developed that word. No one knew about your condition. Indeed, I doubt Mr. Frost would have wanted to continue collaborating with you had he found out. After all, it was your job to make sure his creations tasted good. Therefore, your son wasn't here just to support you. He was helping you by tasting your work. Dang, now it all makes sense. Mr. Frost's stuff tastes good because he was finished the day before the kid was still here. I have a vivid imagination, Mr. Prosecutor. Do you seriously think that I trust a kid to tell me how to just the taste of my masterpiece? I have some pride, you know, even back then. Did you now? My designs may not have been much to write home back then, but I always knew my work tasted better than anybody else's. You think I'd risk everything by putting my reputation in the hands of a child? This is more than speculation, that's all. Nah. In that case, I'd ask you to speak with your son this instant to see how much of the story he can collaborate. Sadly for you, my son is no longer my concern. What? As soon as I got my sense of taste back, I went straight to Zhengfa to start my training and cut off ties with the kid for good. What? You abandoned your own child? And if ain't that the half of it, no one knows where he is even now. The cops have looked all over for him, but no dice. So you still think you can prove with your asinine theory? Then I'd like to see you try. You think I care about anything besides confectionery? Think again. I got my sense of taste back. What do I need for a son? Wow, this guy's an a-hole. Silence in the courtroom. While Mr. Gusto's words and actions may demonstrate a certain lack of humanity on his part, the goddess of justice cannot judge him for that. Therefore, Mr. Edgeworth, I believe this is time for you to admit defeat. Yeah, give it up. 18 years is a long time for anyone to surface, anything to surface now. Proof or otherwise. Mr. Edgeworth, we have to do something. If we don't, the truth might be lost forever. Where are you, Detective Gumshoe? I can't imagine whose blood it could possibly be, but I can still get it tested right away, sure. Please do, Detective. That's the last piece of the puzzle, I'm sure of it. Once we know whose blood it is. Hey Miles, sorry to cut in your mind palace time, but I was pondering something myself. Our friend Gusto didn't come here to check up on the body, did he? You mean because he tried to open the case? Exactamundo. I think anything that might explain why he tried to do that. We might. If Detective Gumshoe can make it back in time with a certain piece of evidence. That's quite enough idle chatter, defense. Now, if you... Mr. Edgeworth, sorry to keep you waiting. Speak of the devil. I take it you have the test results, Detective. Yeah, sure, the lab just got back to me. Detective, please, this court is in session. Now then, I am right to assume that you are bringing us evidence Mr. Edgeworth was just speaking of? What? Hey, no fair. Why didn't anybody tell me about any of this? Because you're dumb. Is indeed evidence in question, Your Honor. I needed it tested, so I asked him to carry it out. What the? Why is everybody helping you? I'm supposed to be the one in charge here. Mr. Winner, I'm sorry. I didn't involve you, but this is important. Can we at least hear what the detective has to say? Well, alright. So Detective Gumshoe, what did the test have to tell you? You're not going to believe this, but the owner of the blood we found in liquid at the bottom of the Gemini cases, Carmelo Gustos, the victim, the poison and gas attack. What are you talking about? Thank you, Detective. You've been very helpful. Well, it looks like my suspicions were correct. What do you mean, Mr. Edgeworth? Yes, what do you mean? Explain yourself. What's the significance of the blood to this case? The only very thing that the perpetrator of the IS-7 incidents had been trying to hide all these years. The fact that your blood was found at inside the Gemini case, Mr. Gusto, is good for finding your blood lying right next to the Mr. Frost's body. Why would there be traces of your blood in there, of all places, Mr. Gusto? If you won't answer her honor, Mr. Gusto, then I will. There wasn't just blood in there, liquid from the Gemini case. There were traces of salt and sugar, too. There were. And if you remember, one particular part of Mr. Frost's work was allegedly very salty indeed. Oh yeah. You're talking about what Delisa told us back then, right? What was it again? Did they ever? I tried the ice is so scrumptious in my life. Really? Man, I wish I could have had a bite. Well, scrumptious except for the salty bit, of course. That was unbearable. The salty bit? Or the salty bit? Nah, I wasn't Gregor either. It was one in the other photo. You've got there, this bit, the harpy thing. The Gemini's leer. Yes, leer. And the only leer that tested it had the leer tasted as if it had been flavored with salt. There were no traces of salt anywhere in that Mr. Frost's entry. Very interesting. Then perhaps tell us, Mr. Edgeworth, where did the salt of the leer come from? This lamp, the IS-7 incident. Indeed. I believe the salt that gave the leer its flavor came from such a lamp. Mr. Von Kama had established both salt lamps were in Mr. Tangaroa's room at the time of the crime. One of them had been used to kill Mr. Frost. And it was stained with blood. But no corresponding pool of blood found in Mr. Tangaroa's room. Right, because the culprit had chunked the pieces of chocolate out with it into a little stream. Furthermore, aside from the leer, no traces of salt were found anywhere else in Mr. Frost's room either. Hey, come to think of it, the lamps we found in Delicia's room were both broken. The lamps appear to be broken. Bulbs are smashed, both of them. Maybe they just fell and broke on the floor. We never did figure out how one of them was used to kill Frost got busted, but we are thinking maybe that Gusto had blood on it. Maybe it had Gusto's blood on it at some point. Anyone whose blood was found on one of those lamps would have been the person of interest to the police. So the killer needed to hide the blood somehow. And in that way, it wouldn't arouse suspicion. And you're seriously suggesting that the leer was used to do just that? I am. I suspect the bloody salt was somehow applied to the leer so it could be hidden inside the case. Because unlike the fountain water, the sculptures would have needed more time and care to test properly. And so he waited and waited for his chance to dispose of the leer undetected. Then what was the reason he's here today is 18 years ago, Mr. Frost's body and the evidence pointing to his killer were taking away together. This, of course, was not part of the perpetrator's plan, and thus a new dilemma arose. How could he be sure that neither Mr. Frost's body nor the evidence wouldn't be discovered someday? So he came back 18 years later, sneaking in bright and early to try to cover his tracks. Well, Mr. Gusto, are you finally ready to admit it? That you are the one responsible for the IS-7 incident? Mr. Gusto, it's all because of you that Samson's... Gusto. So I finally got caught, huh? All these years later. Nobody came back then. Not even the big shot prosecutor or attorney. That's some impressive work, Mr. Prosecutor. I have to hand it to you. You admit it then? That you're the murderer, Artie Frost? Sure I do. I did it. I killed him. But he only had himself to blame. What do you mean by that? He agreed to help me. We were supposed to help each other so that one of us could win. And whoever won was supposed to let the other use the cookbook. But on that day of the final, the rat finally showed his true colors. Seriously, Frost? We had a deal. Sorry, I'm not helping you in the final. Our little agreement is over, Gusto. But I helped you. I spent all day yesterday making the ice for your pieces. Did you? Then I can prove that, I suppose. Brandon can prove that, I suppose. What do you... Wait. You were planning to betray me right from the start, weren't you? After the number crossed me, I had to make my peace on the final day by myself. And like you said, my son wasn't there, so I didn't have any help with the flavor either. So much for the pride you claim to have, your ability to make delicious desserts. Go ahead and judge. You have no idea what it was like for someone like me to lose their sense of taste. I gave up everything to become the best. Everything. I take pride in that. Something someone like you could never understand. You're right, I don't understand. Do you take pride in the fact that you resorted to murder? Or that you abandoned your son? Why would I want to understand someone who could do such things? Man, a man can't afford to rely on other people. I learned that the hard way 18 years ago. My son never showed up on the day of the final. And in hindsight, I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Frost was the reason why. Why would you think that? What exactly happened to your son? How am I supposed to know? I told you, he's none of my concern anymore. And according to you guys, nobody knows where he is now either. And you don't care? You're horrible. So with his disappearance, so went your chances of winning, correct? Yeah, I had no other way to getting my hands on that book. That's when inspiration struck. I decided to skip the afternoon tea and snuck into Tangaroa's room. It should have been so easy. So I had to do was photograph the formulas I needed to get out of there. But then Frost showed up. I thought I might find you here. Stealing recipes from the famous cookbook, hmm? Frost. What's this? A cure for taste disorders? Oh no. That's just too tragic. A confectioner who can't taste anything. What will people say? And if you tell anybody, I'll... You'll what? You can't even hit me, you miserable worm. Why you? Frost shoved me so hard, that's when I punched him and knocked me clean off my feet. I crashed into one of those lamps. Must have been when my blood got on it. So Mr. Frost wasn't the first to get hurt. When it was all over, I realized I had to get rid of that blood somehow. So I scraped it off, all the bloody bits, and dissolved the salt shavings in some flavored ice mixture and brushed it all over the heart. So that's how you made an evidence linking you to the murder vanish. Frost was going to blackmail me. He would have made me give him money to keep quiet about my condition. So you decided you had to kill him. Yeah, I guess I did. Why would I let him live? Would you want someone hiding something like that over your head? Besides, he's the one who drew blood, the first blood. Makes solid for a case of self-defense, don't you think? So that was his impetus behind it all. Anyway, I initially took the lamp to Frost's room. Went straight there once I figured out how I was going to hide the bloody part. Inspired by all the ice sculpting tools lying around that place, I guess. You're not as dumb as you pretend to be. Yeah, I figured out I could use them to chip off and grind it up. Once I was done the painting, the stuff all over with the harp was easy. So why Samson? Why did you have to frame him? I never meant for the cops to pin it on him. That was your fault. You and the rest of them. Why do you think I went to the trouble of placing the lamps and cloths back in Scone's room? There was only one reason to plant a murder weapon in the room of another contestant. And that was to cast suspicion on that person. What? You tried to frame me, Gusty Pants? Yeah. But why? Why poor old me? I respected Tangaroa. He was the best, a true champion. I would have never wanted him to take the fall. But you're a fraud. Your work wasn't even real. You had no respect for our crafts at all. You deserve to be punished for what you did. Oh, Gusty, how could you? And you refrained from eating Tangaroa's work. Frost's body wouldn't have been found. My plan was to wait until Tangaroa is judging your room. That's when I would sneak the corpse in the Frost room and freeze it. But thanks to you, Bound here found it before I had a chance to retrieve it. I don't understand. Why did you need to freeze his body at all? Huh. Why indeed? Mr. Edgeworth, surely you must know. Why did Mr. Gusto have to freeze Mr. Body? Ooh, all these are really plausible. Mr. Gusto needed to freeze Mr. Frost's body in order to obscure the time of death. And they determined that the murder occurring during the afternoon tea would have been an obvious suspect. Bingo! Freezing the body wasn't simple. Preparing everything took time. So I decided to put his body in a chest in Tangaroa's room. Well, he got everything in Frost. At the time, it seemed like the perfect hiding place. Never counted on some gluttonous pharmacist showing up and making the whole ship collapse. I still don't get it though. Why disguise the body as an ice sculpture at all? The sooner it was found, the smaller the effect of the freezing would have had on masking the time of death. Therefore, he needed to disguise it, at least until it fully frozen. How awful. Using Mr. Frost's own work to help you cover up the truth behind his murder. Ironically, Tangaroa would have been just fine if the body hadn't been found before I got to his room. If only the thing had gone to plan, he wouldn't have had to been arrested, let alone convicted. You mean it wasn't my fault? Everything happened to Samson? It was all because I found the body? Don't let don't let him get inside your head, Judes. None of this is your fault. If it wasn't Samson, it would have been Delisa instead. She would have been the one they arrested. Either way, there's only one person to blame here, and that's Gusto. It didn't help that the initial detective was so bad at his job either. He never even told the prosecutor that the body had been vanished. So then, Mr. Von Karma had unwittingly placed Mr. Tangaroa on arrest at the absence of the body. I mean, I guess it would explain why he was so keen to wrap things up. So you'd think he noticed something as big as that if he had taken a look at the few reports, right? Not if someone had deliberately distorted the facts of the case, though. Either way, it seems that Mr. Von Karma didn't know that the body until after the arrest had been made. But admitting that would have spoiled his perfect record. So keeping it to himself, he proceeded to prosecute Mr. Tangaroa regardless. Can this really be true? You don't seem bad at all. Somebody spent 18 years in prison because of you. Sticks and stones, girlie. Sticks and stones. What a jerk. I ought to arrest you right now, pal. Don't touch him yet. I'm afraid I can't allow you to do that, detective. Yeah. So you noticed, huh? Glad somebody did. The judge is right. You can't lay a finger on me. What? Why? You just confessed to the murder. No idea, huh? Then I guess I better lay it out for you. Oh, another testimony. Why? I killed Frost 18 years ago. The statute of limitations for murder in this country is 15 years. You do the math. You can't arrest me. You think you have confessed otherwise. That's right. The statute of limitations is only 15 years. This is really the end of the line, Mr. Edgeworth. Once the statute has expired, he can't be charged, so... But... How unfortunate, Mr. Edgeworth. I'm afraid that both Mr. Gusto's confession and your deductions have been struck from the record, and that Mr. Tangaroa's conviction will remain in place. But we've finally proven that the police never had Mr. Frost's body in possession. Even if we can't arrest Mr. Gusto, surely Mr. Tangaroa is grounds for a retrial on that basis. Does he? I wouldn't be so sure. I'm afraid that the goddess of judgments are somewhat harder to overturn than you might imagine. So the committee means the verdict from 18 years ago to stand no matter what. Bad luck, Mr. Prosecutor. There must be something we can do. Something to bring Mr. Gusto down.
Hold it!
The passage of time doesn't diminish what you did, Mr. Gusto. It sure diminishes one thing, though. Your ability to arrest me. Oh, we can arrest you. We can arrest you real good. I could have you in cuffs before you even blink, pal. Right, Mr. Edgeworth. This is an issue isn't open as shut as you're making it out to be, detective. You can't touch me. It's too late for that.
Hold it!
Depending on your actions, over the last 18 years, the statue may not have expired yet. This ought to be good. Alright, I got nothing to hide. If there's something you want to ask it. Very well, tell us where you've been and what you've been doing since the incident. Sure. Not long after the contest, I was able to cure my taste of disorder thanks to the formula in that book. And not long after that, I went to Zangfa to really buckle down and hone my craft. That explains a lot. We tried to contact you after the fact, but I guess you were long gone by then, huh? Could be. I left, let's see, around a year after the murder. It was before Tangaroa's last day in court. Going to Zangfa was the best thing I ever did. Flavor design, I'm the full package now.
Objection!
And all in the backs of those whose lives you destroyed. What is an omelet without a few eggs? Nothing, Mr. Prosecutor, nothing. You're evil. Sticks and stones, girlie. You can't arrest me, that's all that matters. Me to work with. There has to be something I can get out of him. Maybe I can push him further. On the statements you just made, is there anything I should follow up on? Would you mind telling us more about Mr. Tangaroa's final day in court? Fine. As for Tangaroa, I didn't stick around for his final court appearance.
Hold it!
And you weren't summoned as a witness at any point in the prosecution or defense. I had more important things to do than worry about some court case. I was busy getting ready to go become the best. Gregory and me searched high and low for that guy. Seemed like he didn't want to be found. Sounds like he played his cards right and managed to avoid setting foot in court.
Hold it!
Depending on your actions on the last 18 years, the statue may have not yet expired yet. This ought to be good. Alright, I had nothing to hide. And if there's something you want to ask it. Very well, tell us where you've been, what you've been doing since the incident. Sure.
Objection!
I'd like you to tell us more about your training in Zangfa, if you mind. Fine.
Hold it!
Zangfa, and you were there for a while, I imagine. Yeah, I left sometime after investigating had wrapped up. I've been meaning to go there and start my studies for a while. And thanks to the hard work I put in. My designs are now world class. Whoa, that's amazing. You like it? It's yours. Really? Alright. So you spent some time in Zangfa training.
Hold it!
Never say never, Miss Augusto. Nothing's impossible. Really, come on, give it up. Your father couldn't catch me, and what makes you think you can? He would have solved this whole case if it hadn't been for Mr. Von Carter obstructing him at every turn. And now the statute of limitations is threatening to enter the truth of this case forever. Don't listen to Mr. Edgeworth. You can't give up now. Not now. We're doing this for your dad, and so we have to see it through to the end. Okay. The truth is right there for the taking. What kind of great thieves are we if we don't grab it for ourselves? I am not a great thief, Kay, but you're right. Carmelo Gusto, I won't allow you to make off with the truth. Do your worst.
Hold it!
That is the only reason, because you knew the statue had expired. Why else would I do it? Why would anybody? Not that I planned on ever coming out, of course. And why is that? Because I'm finally the world's greatest confectioner. And petty stuff like this only gets in the way of me and my craft. So you're more concerned about your rep than the fact that Samson is still rotting in jail? I've seen some pieces of work in my time, but you're just flat out unforgivable. Who cares about unforgiveness? I did what I did. I don't need you to understand any of it. Alright, Miles, it's official. Uncle Eddie is mad. And it doesn't happen often. You're not the only one. But if I don't worry, he won't get away with this. Not if I can help it. Mr. Augusto is no ordinary opponent. He's got 18 years without his crimes being exposed. I think Mr. Edgeworth, there must be some way to arrest him. The guy's probably watched a few legal dramas before. But he's no lawyer, not like you and me. There's got to be some loophole somewhere we can use. There's just got to be. He's right. Mr. Gusto just arrested, Mr. Gusto's just an armchair attorney, after all. I am not sure what I do here. Ooh, 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 ooh. How about statute of limitations for dummies? Sucker? The statute of limitations for murder is subject to the following condition. The statute is suspended should the suspect flee to a foreign country, which means the time that you spent abroad doesn't count for the total time under the statute. No way. So it's like someone hit pause while he was in Zangfa? It appears that there may be time left on the clock just yet. But it will depend on how long you stayed in Zangfa, Mr. Gusto. It was 3 years exactly. 3 years? Hold on. Nobody say anything until I'd done the math. The murder happened 18 years back. The statute is 15. And 3 years overseas. 15 plus 3 makes exactly 18. Which means no way. Mr. Edgeworth, you did it. The statute hasn't expired after all. Yeah. Bingo, 18 years exactly. Got it worked out. For yourselves. He's just stringing us along the whole time. Why is he laughing? We're good, aren't we? We can arrest him now. I hate to break it to you, little sis, but IS-7 went down at the end of December. It's April now, which means, strictly speaking, it's been 18 years and 4 months since Frost's murder. If Mr. Gusto stayed in Zangfa really lasted 3 years on the nose, it's not enough. We're here a few months short. Not enough, but... What did I tell you? You can't touch me. I hate the minute, but... He's read and roared when he made his confession. How unfortunate, Mr. Edgeworth. If only the statue had been suspended another year. Those who would overturn the goddess' judgment must be willing to pay the price should they fail. And you, Mr. Edgeworth, have failed. There must be something I can do. I know it. Well, the law can't bring Mr. Gusto to justice then. Judes, what are you thinking?
Objection!
There's no need to go adding to your rap sheet just yet. We're not done here, far from it, because there's still a way we can nail him. There is. Alright, Myers, we're in a pep talk. I need you to think back to over everything we know about the case. Gusto's overlooked one critical thing you yourself led to believe wrongly about, which is he wasn't there for Samson's last trial, remember? Best I can tell you, he doesn't seem to know what the final verdict came down that day is, which means there's still no one way left to us. Crack open your statues for dummies and take another look. 17 years ago, they really did a number on Samson and framed him like a pretty picture. But if we make good on the use of the verdict now, we can make Gusto pay in full for what he's done. Fender, are you? Those who could overturn a goddess' judgment must be willing to pay the price should they fail. Samson's my client, Miles, and I can't bring myself to use the source of his pain as a weapon in this fight. So whether we play our last card or not is going to have to be up to you. Bringing Mr. Gusto to justice can only happen if I use the outcome of that hard-fought trial. So, should I raise an objection or play the card or not? My father, Mr. Von Karma, one sought to reveal the truth, other to hide it. I know which path I choose to follow, and that one seeks to reveal the truth. The court has reached its final verdict. The record will state that Mr. Gusto will be found not guilty on all counts. No, Your Honor, Mr. Carmelo Gusto is absolutely guilty, and I refuse to let him walk away. His crimes are too unspeakable to go unpunished. Do you mean to suggest that you have grounds upon which to call his arrest? I do. Now to show Judge Gavelle something that proves that statute of limitation has yet to expire. The statute is suspended from any time the accomplice's indictment to the end of their trial. I'm not sure if that's what I'm supposed to do. Or could it be the autopsy report? No detailed autopsy report due to the body going missing.
Take that!
No. As appears highly irrelevant. Here. Leave me in, Mr. Edgeworth. I understand your frustration. This isn't easy giving up a lost case.
I would not give up. I would see justice done.
Mr. Tangaroa's trial lasted a year. And though it ended without a verdict, it could be more long. Ever seen Mr. Customers?
Take that!
Oh crap. I would like you to direct your attention to the page concerning the suspect. As you see, Samson Tangaroa was convicted as an accomplice. And it took around 1 year of his indictment for the verdict to be reached. Yes, that does seem to be the case. In the book you gave us details the condition pertaining the statute of limitations for the murder. One of them, as mentioned, is the statute suspended if the suspect flees the country. And another statute states that the statute is suspended from the time of any accomplice indictment to the end of the trial.
What?
Tangaroa was convicted as accomplice? Yep. Guess you were in Zangfa when the verdict came down. Samson was convicted as an accomplice, not as the main perpetrator. Which is clearly news to you, and not good news either. Am I right? But how could this be? Tangaroa wasn't a good accomplice. Tangaroa was an accomplice to anyone. He was innocent. And you know it. Oh, we know it. And what had been trying to prove all along. And in pleasing and twist of fate, in his wrongful conviction, will be the very thing that sets him free. If you spend 3 years in Zangfa, and your accomplice Samson Tangaroa was on trial for 1 year, it means you can still be charged with Mr. Frost's murder up to 19 years after the fact. In other words, the statute of limitations hasn't expired at all. The goddess of judgment is infallible, but that her servants, it appears, it does not seem to be the prosecutors in charge of this case, may have erred. Unbelievably, we have no choice to investigate a full inquiry. No, how could this? You weren't supposed to be. 18 years, that's a long time for somebody else suffered for your crimes. It's time to pay the piper, Gusto. Not a moment too soon. But I'm finally the greatest. My brilliance has been recognized. I have to give up everything for this. Everything.
even my son. More's the pity. But you can't run from the law forever, because the bill has come due past. Ugh. Ah. Mr. Gusher's all set for the trip downtown, sure.
Oh, good. Which means your next turn. It's your turn next, right?
I suppose so.
Jude, I'm so sorry, everybody. I've caused you all so much trouble. But thank you. Thank you so much for bringing Mr. Gusto to justice at last. I'm afraid there's no escaping the consequences of your actions, Miss Baum. But those actions were born of legal mistakes that were made all those years ago. We all know that. So allow me to apologize in return on behalf of the prosecution. Oh no, I have no one to blame but myself for it all. Starting with those sculptures. Hey Jude, you think you may want me to represent you? I'm not some nervous newbie anymore. And there's no way I'm letting you take the rap for everything. I'd be honored. Thank you, Mr. Fender. Sorry, man, but you gotta come with me now. Of course. Judge Cavell, why did you lie to us? I? What are you talking about? You implied that there was no case for retrial, but as we've proven, that wasn't true. Surely anyone truly committed to seeing the justice done would have called one as soon as the body was found. I am no under obligation to answer such questions. And you clearly have no intention of doing so either. Truly, you're proving to be quite a threat to the Committee of Prosecutor Excellence. As such, you give me little choice but to report back to your continued transgressions. No doubt you will be called to appear before the committee in due course. Now, I must be on my way. What the heck? After you caught the real killer and everything? Isn't that what prosecutors are supposed to do? Regardless of how it may all play out, I will never regret what we accomplished here today. Mr. Edgeworth. Hey, Mr. Edgeworth. Yes? Why did you stick your nose in this case anyway? You weren't even on a job. My job is to bring the truth to light, Mr. Winter. Not only as a prosecutor, but as a person. I don't get it. I wouldn't expect you to understand. Not as long as you believe in that closing a case makes you a winner. That's not going over. That's going way over my head. I'm going home. He's such a goof. Like, I don't know. It's hard to like take him seriously. What was that all about? Eustace still has a lot to learn. Is all.
Wisely. Yes. You just said old Greggy Pegleg would have been proud of you today. Oh, look at me tearing up. And that's helping poor Sammy Poople. Of course. Hey Edgy, look, you cleared up everything, huh? So what happened exactly? I was kind of busy sketching. Wait, where did Judy and Verity go? Wow, you really weren't paying attention, were you? Though I am loath to admit it, various sketches did come through for us on more than one occasion. Not that I'm about to tell him that. Quit with the glaring at me, will you? Whatever I did, I'm sorry. Calm down, Larry. I wasn't glaring at you. You totally were. You just like your pop. He was a terrible liar too. He was. Listen, I'm gonna head out. Need to fill Samson on what went down today. You wanna come with? Yes, of course. Great, and I'm coming too. So what is Mr. Tangaroa like? I can't wait to finally meet him. Oh, he's a real sweetheart. You'll love him. Even while locked up, he can't help but make all sorts of cookies and cakes for everyone. That's why 3 p.m. cakes transvagaza is a thing for the prisoners and guards alike. Really? That sounds awesome. You think there'll be any left for us to try? Didn't we have a few slices of chocolate cake in the prison the other day? Could they have been Mr. Tangaroa's baked goods? Gummy, what are you doing here? I heard you're all coming to see Mr. Tangaroa, so I volunteered to escort him. Hello, new friends. I am Samson Tangaroa. Prosecutor Miles Edgeworth at your service. And I'm Mr. Edgeworth's trusty sidekick, Kay Faraday. Nice to meet you both. Miles here is Gregory's son. Is that so? Your father was very kind to me and fought so hard for my case. But in the end, I betrayed him. I made a false confession and... Don't worry, Mr. Tangaroa. Mr. Fender has explained everything to me. Sure did, and now we're here to tell you the truth about what happened 18 years ago. The truth? Judy did all that for me? Crazy kid racked her brain for 18 years until she finally figured out how to set you free. What can I say? Turns out she really would do anything for you. Oh, Judy, I never did anything to deserve such a devotion. Come now, Mr. Tangaroa, I think we all know that's not true. The bond between the two of you was held strong for all these years after all. You think so? I guess I better show him. Which piece of evidence is the proof that Mr. Tangaroa and Miss Bond share? I'm not sure. Those chocolates, Judy made them, didn't she? Yes, she did. Their soup is delicious and sweet. Miss Bond continued making them, just as you taught her, even after that fateful day. So that there would always be some waiting for you when you finally came home. Judy. I bet they're beyond super sweet then, aren't they? Very much so, I'm afraid. I only wish we could hand them to you. Don't worry, sure. I'll make sure he gets them later. Which would be clear a breach of prison policy. Not that I have authority to stop him anyway. Thank you very much. You know, Detective, something about you reminds me of Detective Bad. Really, pal? Cause I look up to him a lot. He's my role model. You don't say. It seems like fate likes to bring people of all sorts together, huh? You hang in there, Samson, just a little longer. I should be able to get you out soon. I'm sorry it taken so long. Nobody should have wait 18 years to get to justice. Or rather, thank you, truly. Samson. Well, I guess it's my turn to wait for Judy to come home now. I better make sure there's something delicious for her on the table when she finally walks in that door. Don't let me down, Eddie. Leave it to me, big guy. The IS-7 incident. It's been 18 long years, but this case we inherited from my father is finally coming to a close. Hey, Miles. Thanks for today. And sorry for forcing you to make the final call like that. Not at all. Or, not at all. I simply made a call that felt right to me. Huh? What are you guys talking about? You know, Samson was wrongly convicted. We had to pretend that he wasn't in We had to pretend that he wasn't in order to nail Gusto. But to use the false conviction against him, even to save him. His lawyer just couldn't bring myself to do it. Yeah, I can see that. But now that Mr. Gusto's behind bars, I can finally start to get that wrongful conviction overturned. Yes, and I'm sure you will. Wait a minute, does that mean that you were the only one doing what's right? If the false conviction had been overturned before today, Mr. Gusto could have gotten away scot-free. Yep. That's what folks trade like to call legal contradiction. The law is far from perfect. Because of things like legal contradictions, right? Yeah. You never know. Things might change. Lawyers always evolving, just like humans. Your Uncle Eddie and Miles Reno included, am I right? The potential for growth and change. In people's law, huh? So, Miles, are you going to keep fighting crimes as a prosecutor? Or help people as an attorney? Something tells me you got a big decision ahead of you. Only one you can answer. I know. Well, let's just say I won't complain if you show up at the office one day. And on that note, it's time for me to skedaddle. I owe you big time, and I always repay my debts, but for now... Thanks again for today, I mean it. Did he seem kind of in a hurry to get out of here too? Yeah. He did. And honestly speaking, I'm the one who owes him a debt of gratitude. After all, he gave me a chance to reckon with my father's final case. When I was a boy, all I ever dreamed of was becoming an attorney like my father. But then, during my time with Mr. Von Karma, I learned the way of the prosecutor instead. Eventually, with the help of some good friends, I found my own voice and a new way to live. But now my career as a prosecutor is at risk of being taken away from me. It may be time to take another long, hard look at how I want to live my life, whether I like it or not. Hey, Gregory. Sorry for reporting in so late. It may have taken 18 years, but we finally got in a position to prove Samson's innocence. All thanks to your boys, Miles. I couldn't have done it without him. You should have seen him. The way he fought for the truth gave me chills. It was like I was watching you. Look, and now I'm not half the attorney you were. But those guiding principles you tried to instill in me, I like to think I am embodying them now as I carry on your legacy. Here's hoping. Your boy will be joining me in that soon. What is the right answer? Which path should I choose? Turnabout Legacy. Yeah, we did it. Alrighty, let's pick up episode 4 on Friday. I gotta wake up early for work tomorrow, but I hope to see you guys then, and we'll bust through episode 4. Alrighty, guys. Peace!